You get frustrated trying to sit down and like piece out a song that you want to learn note for note, and you can't.
Yeah.
Because the notes aren't all there are,
Yeah.
There's some other thing there, and I think the other thing is the atmosphere around the person who originally played those notes.
Yeah.
So I have my own atmosphere.
Right.
And so I can play those notes and it'll come out with my atmosphere, so it's not going to sound like that anyway.
Hey there, Tony Polecastro here with Tony's Acoustic Challenge, and we are very fortunate today to be visited by Charlie Parr. I just want to thank you for being here, first off.
Well, it's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, you are welcome. And so you drove down from Missoula just this
Missoula
morning.
last night. Yep.
How was the show last night?
It was a blast. It was
Awesome.
really. Missoula had their art walk going on.
Oh,
and
killer.
so the whole downtown was full of people. And
Nice.
It was great. I had a really good time.
Awesome. Missoula's a really cool town.
It's a
just
fun
just
town.
north of Bozeman here. And you're playing here tonight at the filling station.
That's right.
And is this is not your first time at the filling station, correct?
No, it's. I don't know how many times I played at the filler. I haven't played anywhere else in Bozeman.
Yeah.
And I've been coming to Bozeman for at least 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was my next question is how long have you been coming to Bozeman? 10
Yeah,
years.
It's been at least 10 years.
That's
so. I mean, I can remember they all kind of flood together now, but Bozeman's been a consistent stop on my weird trajectories.
Yeah. Which we were talking about this before we everything was rolling, and you drive. Mm-hmm. You're a big fan of the driving around the U.S.
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason why?
There are a few reasons why.
Yeah.
I'm petrified of flying.
Uh-huh. That's a good reason.
It's also kind of expensive. I mean, as far as like being able to afford getting around the country, my little car gets almost 40 miles to the gallon consistently when it starts.
Yeah.
And I don't have to go to the airport and get stressed out. I get everything I have in there. I can almost live in it,
Yeah.
I try to live very frugally on the road.
For sure.
I'd shop at the grocery store. I wrap my food in tin foil and cook it on the manifold while I'm driving. Go to the show, play the show, flop the seat back, and go to sleep. And you're
Nice.
And you're on for the next day. So
It's like
just
troubadour.
easier.
It's troubadour style.
it's yeah. I mean, of all the different kind of ways, it's pretty easy. And unfortunately, in the United States, there's not a really good nationwide way to get around the country without driving.
Right.
So that's just the way it is.
So, a real quick question. This is related to driving. Are you living in the Twin Cities now, or are you living in Duluth?
I live in Duluth.
Okay,
which
awesome.
is about 2.5 hours north of Minneapolis.
Awesome. So when you come across, this is just a question that I'm dying to know. Do you ever stop at Wall Drug?
I have stopped at Wall Drug.
Free ice water?
I haven't. Yeah, exactly. 5-cent cup of coffee went up to 25 cents.
Yeah.
I haven't stopped there in a long time.
Right.
So it's probably been. My son was probably 2 last time I stopped there, so 12 years.
So actually, that's one of the questions that I have burning, and it's. I have a son. He's 9. He's back in Chicago, and so as you're touring around, what's it like having? You've got 2 kids at home. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a 9-year-old girl, and my son is 14.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it tough? Do you communicate with them often on the road?
Yeah, as often as I can.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard. When we were all kind of together, we traveled together a lot.
Yeah.
And now that things are different, and the kids are older, and they've got
Sure.
interests of their own and stuff.
Yeah.
You pass this weird kind of point where you start the realization is I'm 48 now, and the realization is, okay, there's really not a lot else for me to do, even if I wanted to do anything else, and
Right.
I don't. I mean, I'm extremely lucky to be able to do this, but this is for as long as I can do this, this is the lifestyle that I'm going to lead.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a challenge. The challenge becomes, okay, when I am near Duluth, when I am living around Duluth, I need to be with my kids as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, for sure.
And give them, quality kind of awake time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I've been able to do.
That's awesome.
When I was coming up, my dad worked in a packing house,
Right.
and they worked a lot.
Sure.
And when he came home, he was wiped.
For
I
sure.
could see him; his body was laying on the couch. But,
Right.
Sometimes it just wasn't. He was working really hard.
Yeah.
To make ends meet. So, I don't know. It's kind of a horse apiece in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's wild. Well, I think it's great that you're able to manage both. I know that I'm sure it's difficult, as you mentioned, but
Yeah, I hope it is. I mean, it's kind of a melancholy thing.
Yeah.
And I hope that when, as the kids get older, that it won't be a problem. It won't be a resentment.
For sure.
I think
for
about
sure.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But all you can do is, I guess, do your best.
Absolutely. That's what my folks always tell me as a father.
Yeah.
So, speaking of your dad, I've seen a couple interviews, and you've talked pretty extensively about diving into his record collection at a pretty early age, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Can you shed a little light on that?
Well, I can tell you how early it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I was little, I liked to draw a lot.
Yeah.
I drew on everything, doodles everywhere, crayons and markers, whatever I had. And Dad's record collection was not huge, but it was weird. And it was like a lot of old records, really old records. And, the sleeve, inside the sleeve, the dust jacket for the record, the sleeve in there, is really good heavy white paper. So I mined his record collection. Before I even listened to it, I mined it for paper. And so I was like 4.
Yeah.
And would go to his record collection and like take those sleeves out, and go draw dinosaurs all over them, and split them open so I had more paper, It's like that, because I drew, and I just like doodle on everything. Mom and Dad weren't gonna like buy me new paper because I was just like, just wasteful.
Right.
Anyway, so I did that, and then when I ran out of those eventually.
Sure.
And I mean, I used them all.
Yeah.
And then I went and like if nobody was looking, I'd find a record that had a those stickers that Folkways used to put on there.
Yeah.
Sometimes that comes off. You can get those off and get some more paper, or just take the record out and put the record like somewhere else, and then you can split the seams and you've got 2 nice pieces of cardboard.
Yeah.
Like, whoa! So I'm drawing like murals. And the funny thing about Dad was he was like, it's all right.
Whoa.
The record.
So I was in my
listening to
mind.
music, man.
In my mind, I had totally. It was like, when did Dad find this out?
Yeah. No, I think he knew a lot. Because I mean, there's record sleeves laying around with dinosaurs all over him.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and he wasn't. He was. Not that. He wasn't that upset about material things.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
If you'd messed up the record somehow, I think it would have bothered him because the music would have went away. But he listened to music all the time. I mean, records played all the time, and half the time he didn't put them back. So
Right.
So when I was 6 and 7, I really started to pay attention to what was playing in the house.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of real old country like Jimmy Rogers and Carter Family.
Yeah.
Some new country. He liked Johnny Cash. He liked Johnny Horton. And then a small batch of really weird old records like Leadbelly, Woody Guthrie, that Smithsonian box set of Guthrie being interviewed by Lomax, which is intense. You'd listen to the whole thing, and a couple of blues records, Lightning Hopkins, Mance Lipscomb, Albert King, and so I just kind of woke up one day, I'm like, wow, and I was looking at the few record sleeves that were left, and one of them was Mance Lipscomb.
Yeah.
And there's just this one guy on the cover.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to this music, he's doing this Piedmont style stuff. And I told my dad, I said, I want to play the guitar. I want to do that.
Yeah.
He's like, that's a tall order, but he went and got me a guitar.
So that's your first guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And was that so this is so cool. I got to tell you a little side story. So this morning, Mance Lipscomb was a name that I've heard bopped around a lot, but I never listened. Okay.
Oh.
So this morning, I'm like, I'm interviewing Charlie later. I have to know this. I've dug into Mississippi John Hurt, but I went through it all backwards. I started in heavy metal.
Yeah.
My dad showed me Johnny Winter, and then I started going backwards.
Nice.
Okay. So thank you for mentioning Mance, because it's awesome. And the whole time I'm listening to this morning, all I could think of is so there's a 6 or 7-year-old boy listening to this record. What is going on? So was it the guitar that grabbed you? Was it the whole experience? What was it that made it click at that point?
I still don't know, because I can still listen to that record, and it was called Texas Songster. I think it was Volume 1.
Okay.
And incidentally, I was downtown today at Vargas.
Yeah.
And I found Volume 6 of the Mans Lipscomb Our Hooli set. I'd never even seen it before.
Right.
And so I was like, doink. And it's unopened. It's an unsealed copy. Well, it's not going to be unopened for long.
Right.
It's going to go home and get listened to. But anyway, but I put on that record. I can put on that record today, and I still got the same one.
Yeah.
And I got a new dust jacket for it. And I get the same feeling. I get the same intense kind of, electric feeling listening to that music. And I don't really know what it was. It was just like everything about it.
Right.
I loved. There's an atmosphere with that record, and a lot of records like that.
Sure.
Well, a lot of records have their own atmosphere. That record has an atmosphere that I just immediately became enthralled with. And it's never went away. I mean, some music, you get tired of, you over-listen to things.
For sure.
That record, I haven't been able to over-listen to it.
That's so awesome. I mean, I the whole time I was like, first of all, how the hell did I never hear this guy? I mean, I used to work back in Chicago. I worked at the Old Town School of Folk Music.
Oh, nice.
And got to know a lot of the teachers and just the music that came through there, the history. Got to play Big Bill Brunzi's guitar, which was a moment. That was really cool because he willed it to the school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how the hell did I never hear of this? And the whole time I'm like, I'm just sitting there in amazement, like, this is incredible stuff. I mean, it is just raw.
I was really lucky to start there.
Yeah.
Because, frankly, Dad was like, he didn't really remember where he got that record or why it was in there or nothing. He liked it.
Yeah.
He also had a record called Blues in the Bottle by Lightnin' Hopkins.
Yeah.
He had no idea where that came from. And he hadn't. I remember when I was listening to that, he's like, "What's this?" And I'm like, "Lightnin' Hopkins." And he's like, "This is good.
Yeah.
Where'd you get this?" And I'm like, "In there." Like,
Yeah.
Oh, nice. And it was great. And those two records were kind of the thing that sparked me really wanting to play the guitar.
Yeah,
It was specifically those two records. And then I just sat in front of the stereo with this. I mean, the guitar that I ended up with was a 1965 Gibson B25 12-string.
Holy cow!
The next
Your first guitar?
Wide, yeah. And so the first thing I did was take 6 of the strings off because I had no idea.
Right.
We had that Lead Belly record in the house, but I wasn't as entranced by it. So 12 strings, just like, this is very confusing. And then when it had 6 strings on it, I sat in front of the speaker and retuned the guitar until the guitar was ringing like the guitar in the speakers was ringing. And then I just kind of strummed along, and when that didn't sound right anymore, I'd try to do stuff.
Sure.
And that's how I'm still working it out.
No,
Because
so
I've never had any formal lessons or anything like
So
that.
growing up, and you grew up in Austin, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. I remember their ice rink being extremely cold. That's my one memory of Austin when we used to travel through and play hockey. But that's neither here nor there,
No,
but it
that's
was
fine.
cold. So you're attacking the guitar basically all by your lonesome. Is it the whole time? You never had a formal lesson, correct?
No. I mean, in another sense, I had a lot of lessons because, those records, later on when I was older and I could travel around, I went to Minneapolis and saw Spider John Kerner play.
Yeah.
Saw Dave Ray play.
Yeah.
Other blues guitar players around the West Bank like Pete Rikus and Dakota Dave Hull. And these guys, and that's a lesson for me because I'm like sitting there, probably creeping them out, and they were gracious people.
Yeah.
None of them really seemed to care that I was right there. So those are lessons. When I was a teenager, in Austin, and everybody was kind of playing in rock bands, and I wasn't. I mean, I like a lot of different kinds of music, and all my friends were into Sabbath, and I like Sabbath. I really did. I wasn't really into playing it, but I'd go and hang out at the park when everybody was playing, and I'd play a little bit, and all right, man, whatever. And then I'd watch them play, and because at that point I hadn't been playing in standard tuning; I'd been playing in open tunings because that's what that's what I ended up at. I ended up at G most of the time.
Right.
And so you catch things, and even today, I'm like, playing with people, I'm like, oh wow, you're doing something weird, and I want to do
Yeah.
that too. And so those are my lessons.
So do you feel like when it clicked for you, did the guitar become an obsession?
Totally.
Is it still an obsession?
Is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean it was really fast too that
Yeah.
it became an obsession. I had that Gibson. It was sad because I didn't take good care of that Gibson, and it eventually it got really bad and it was unplayable. And instead of getting it repaired like I should have, I just got rid of it.
Right,
which
right.
I regret that to this day. But at one point when I was 16 or 17, I found a early 30s Duolian that was for sale, and I managed to sell the guitar I did have at the time and scrape some money together and buy that. And then when I ended up with a resonator guitar, then it was kind of over. That's kind of the last time I bothered with wooden 6 strings.
Yeah.
After that, and then I went back to the 12 string, which was weird because I picked up 12 strings, and nowadays I play resonator guitars and 12 strings, and that's pretty much it.
And that's your choice. I mean, that's your go-to.
Exactly.
That's so cool. I think it's cool to hear how you learn because it's very, quote unquote folk tradition. It's just kind of that. It's almost the oral tradition of just hearing people play, trying to mimic, watching people play, trying to mimic. Do you feel like today that's lost to a degree?
I did feel that way for a little while, but I don't now. Because I mean, in the history, you know this. We lost the oral tradition when in the early teens when the records started coming in, and by 1937 when Robert Johnson was playing, he was listening to as many records as he was people.
Right.
And then it seemed like we didn't have any of those old guys anymore.
Right.
When I was coming up, I mean, there's no chance to see any of them play. Booker White had died,
Right.
Anyway, but now it seems different again because of things like YouTube. We've got a community without rules again.
Yeah.
Because that's what the oral tradition is. It's a community without rules. You can tell everybody how to do stuff, and no one's saying, "Hey, wait a second, what about money?"
Right.
And I think the problem with like record labels and the 70s in general was that question, what about money, was just being asked too much.
Right.
And it destroyed what we had of passing along things from people to people like folkies always do.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
And now as the folk tradition is back on the boom again, which is really good, and the folk tradition is not only back on the boom, but it's like bringing in all these other disciplines, because I know folk artists who, like Phil Cook, for example, who played with Megaphon, who uses so many different things and includes so many different influences in his music.
Right.
But it's the folk process. It's exactly how it's supposed to happen.
Right.
And YouTube is giving us back, and things like that. I think this might get me in trouble, but is giving us back part of our oral tradition of letting us teach each other.
For sure. I had a blast interviewing Charlie Parr, and I hope you enjoyed this interview. Here on Tony's Acoustic Challenge, we do these interviews all the time, and I don't want you to miss the next one. So, to make sure that you don't miss the next one, please subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. So, let me ask you this. Given that's the case, what would you tell, if you were to tell yourself, if you were sitting here, where you are now, the experience that you have experienced, if you were looking at the 16, 17-year-old Charlie Parr, what advice would you give him in terms of playing the guitar, getting better, playing out?
Play more.
Play more.
Because when I was 16, he's 16. And I don't think it would be impossible because teenagers, and I've got one now, and your attention span is like, oh, girls, oh, guitars, oh, computers, whatever you're into. I don't think that there'd be any advice that I could give myself that I would have taken.
Right.
But that's still my advice for people. They ask me, what I think they should do, and it's just play all the time, play as much as you can, play and take good care of yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I didn't do when I was, in my 20s and 30s. I did not take care of myself.
Right.
I had I drank too much. I ate anything I wanted. A lot of it.
Right.
I weighed over 250 pounds and sat in a car all day driving around to gigs. I started to feel really bad. And I wish that I would have taken better care of myself.
Yeah.
But I started late, but I started, and I'm here now, and
Yeah.
and I'm doing exactly what it is that I think I've always should have been doing, is playing as much as I can.
Right.
Practicing in what I think of as being a sensible way to practice.
Yeah.
Not sitting in my room performing, but actually practicing and
Yeah.
going back over, the sticky spots.
For sure.
And then I've got a couple of weird exercises that I like to do just to kind of keep my mind involved in the whole situation,
For sure.
not just like play songs. But so I've been doing that and trying to take care of my body, and that's what I would tell myself if he would listen, but I doubt he would.
Yeah. So you brought up the practice point. I don't think 16-year-olds listen anyway, ever.
No. I was terrible.
So you brought up the practicing, and that's kind of a hot topic for me, because I'm always curious as to, if I was a fly on the wall in your practice session, what would it look like? Do you? Because I'm a firm believer that practices don't necessarily, and actually probably shouldn't, sound good, because you're working on something new.
Right.
What does your practice session typically look like?
Typically, I will sit down and just warm up playing figures and things that I'm familiar with and that I know, and then I like to do this thing where I'm a big fan of improvisational music.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of weird kind of guitarists like Bill Orcutt.
Okay.
And Paul Metzger, guys like that, Daniel Higgs. I'm a huge fan of that stuff, and so I like to kind of start out with something familiar and just kind of go to other parts of the guitar and see what's over there for a little while.
Yeah.
And it's not going to sound good. It's going to sound bizarre, but I'm going to find things that I might not have thought of before, having trapped myself at one part of the guitar.
Right.
So I do that sometimes for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then I have, usually there's a short list of things that I've been working on, either that I've written or that I've been arranging, that need to be hammered on a little bit. And like you said, I don't usually play the whole song. I usually go right to the part that's been giving me a hard time and just work it out. A few years ago, I used to play with more fingers than this.
Yeah.
And I can't anymore because of muscle fatigue and whatnot. So I just play with these two.
I noticed that.
And so now part of my practice is to bring songs up to speed that used to require more fingers, and now I can't have them there. So finding shortcuts or finding ways to play songs that I really want in my repertoire that I could have played with all my fingers, now that I need to learn how to play them with two and have them sound decent.
For sure.
And not,
for sure.
not either dumb them down, or I'm also not a big fan of frillying things up just because you can,
Right.
And I can't anymore. So now I just like to have a nice, simple, clear presentation on certain things.
Well, that's one of the things I noticed just listening to your music. It is like, it's almost hypnotic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You've got that really steady driving rhythm, which is pretty much tackled by the thumb. But also in watching videos, I see the thumb kind of sneaking away from the low strings and getting pretty high. Is that due to the limitations of?
Yeah.
Okay.
I drop my thumb down now, whereas used to I never do it.
Okay.
Now I'm finding the benefit, and this is really nice because I'm finding that as I'm dropping my thumb out and down, I've opened up some frequencies in the guitar that weren't open before because I was constantly alternating the bass.
Okay.
Constantly.
Right.
And I never really thought about it. I was thinking about the melody and letting my thumb do what it wanted to do, which was boop, 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 boop.
Right.
Now that I'm asking my thumb to drop down and play some other things, suddenly there's these frequencies open up.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I've got all this air now, and the song sounds different now. And I can rearrange the song to be a more melodic and less kind of thumpy kind of thing.
Sure.
And I'm happy with having options that I didn't have before, I guess.
For sure. That's really awesome. I mean, I think it's really cool that, taking a limitation and almost bending it in a way that well, I guess in a way favor you or open up a new door anyway.
Right, I think you have to. I mean, that's with everything. I mean, I think you just have to make the best of it, and if you want to keep doing what it is that you love to do, or like you said, that you're obsessed to do, you're driven kind of to do it. I'm not really sure what I do if it weren't for getting to play the guitar every day.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to find another way.
So it's an everyday thing.
It's an everyday thing. It's not. It's not. You know, when I was young and I didn't have a job or children or other requirements in my life, I would play a lot, probably too much.
Yeah.
Now I find that I play about the right amount. My practice sessions don't usually go for more than an hour and a half.
Okay.
Then there's performing and warming up before performing.
Sure.
When I'm on the road, I usually try to play a show every single day.
Yeah.
When I'm home, I play a lot too, just because I don't have a job. So you've got to kind of keep yourself out there. So
For sure.
But I try not to overdo it either.
Yeah. So mentioning songwriting, and I know I ask a lot of people how do they write songs? What's the process? And it really varies. I mean, it's like the swath of variety is unreal. What is your approach? Is it you have an idea and you have to go write it down, or you sit down and you're like, this is time to write a song. I need to do it right now.
Right.
What's your take?
I've never been able to force myself to sit down and write a song.
Yeah.
And lately it's been, musical ideas will come out of those kind of weird practice sessions where I'm like just following my fingers around the fretboard,
Right.
And then I'll develop those. Lyrically, things come from, I tend to like pose lyrics in the form of short stories.
Yeah.
And then just start like tightening them down until they're song length, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, it feels almost like, I've read kind of the way that like Robert Hunter and Jerry Garcia worked.
Yeah.
It feels like that sometimes, except
Okay.
I'm just kind of both guys. I'm bringing lyrics to myself, and then I'm like, oh, this might fit in here, and it does. Oh, there you go. And,
Yeah.
And so that's how, and then after they're kind of stuck together, they might not work, so they get pulled apart, or they might work, so they keep getting refined and,
Sure.
sanded until it seems to work. So
So it's almost like you have the storyteller self and the songwriter self, and they
Right.
kind of have to communicate in some way.
yeah, and it comes up when it comes up.
Yeah.
When things come up, I'm like, I'm try to be ready and open, and do stuff to get the song kind of remembered in my head.
For sure.
Because otherwise, something will be really cool and it'll go away. I'm like, now it's gone.
Where do they go?
And they go on to the next person.
Oh man. So talking about music and all this stuff, I have to ask. So you're driving around a lot on this particular tour, and most. What are you listening to in the car on this tour?
That's kind of an embarrassing question. I either don't listen to anything.
Okay.
I can't listen to the news anymore because it's horrible. My little car has satellite radio.
Okay.
And I've become completely stuck on the Grateful Dead channel.
That's awesome.
So, like some days, that's what I listen to is like Grateful Dead shows all day long, which is good.
Yeah.
I like.
Is that channel 23? I've got that program. I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah. I haven't really gotten off it yet. There must be some other good stuff on there. And I mean, I've got for like driving and music listening at home is totally different. When I'm at home, I usually listen to old blues records because that's my record collection is mostly made up of that, and I love it so much. Driving, it's that channel. I've got stuff in my phone from like Captain Beefheart to Robert Pete Williams, to Patti Smith. Just a weird variety of stuff that I like a lot. I really like instrumental guitar players. John Fahey and Robbie Basho.
I was going to ask you about John Fahey.
I love those guys. I was a friend of Jack Rose before he passed, and I love that stuff. And like I said, there's kind of a more experimental edge that I really enjoy. And Steve Gunn recently, I've been just burning his stuff down. It's so good. So it's kind of a big variety, but I think that's probably healthy. A lot of people assume that like old time musicians and blues guitar players and folkies in general will only listen to that stuff. But I also think that when I was coming up and those records were in the front of the house in my dad's stereo. In the back of the house where my sister lived, who was older than me,
Yeah.
it was the Beatles and the Stones and the Grateful Dead,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And she even had a couple of Captain Beefheart records back there that were weird and I loved. So, I mean, I just really like it all. There's some things I probably don't like very much or don't listen to that much, but you know, I like to at least know what that is before I dismiss it. You know,
Right. That's a good. That's a really. I like that statement. At least know what it is before you dismiss it. So
I mean, I played at a festival once in Minnesota. It's a festival it's a music festival for film, which is amazing because they show films, but then all the musicians there, he programs it to be musicians that like have made or will be good at making music in films, and I have done that. But I ended up in this evening that included like friends of mine called Low, which is a band from Minnesota. This amazing experimental musician that played an accordion and had all these sample loops on this big card table, and she was incredible, and she sang, and I loved it. And right after me was a metal band called Zebulon Pike. And this buddy of mine says, we're not going to stay for this. I'm like, well, I think we got to stay for this. I need to see what this is all about. And they don't sing. It's like math. It was incredible. They're not looking at the audience. They're not singing. And the guitar, I wish I could have seen what the guitar player was doing because he was just like down all the time and going insane. But this is the most beautiful, crazy 45 minutes, one song. Yeah. It was it. And it was over. And I'm like, I love that. I love that.
That's awesome.
Like, okay, I'm in.
So along with, I want to talk about your particular playing style. And a question, this might be a loaded question. It might not. But I feel the need to ask it. Do you feel like you're, in a way, a torch bearer for a certain style? The blues style, the old kind of folk blues style?
No. I feel like I stand on a lot of big shoulders. I mean, I hope that I brought a little bit of myself to the music.
Yeah.
The greatest lesson that someone never really taught me outright was Spider John Kerner. He never said this to me, but what he demonstrated to me was, the part of the folk process means that you take songs in and put them in whatever the blender, the combine of your thing, and then give them back to the world in that way. Yeah. And it either works or it doesn't work. But that's what it's all about. That's what the folk process is for. And I really took that to heart, especially when you get frustrated trying to sit down and like piece out a song that you want to learn note for note, and you can't. Yeah. Because the notes aren't all there are. Yeah. There's some other thing there, and I think the other thing is the atmosphere around the person who originally played those notes. Yeah. So I have my own atmosphere. Right. And so I can play those notes, and it'll come out with my atmosphere, so it's not going to sound like that anyway. Right. Right. And so when I kind of got that lesson and started just like, settling into the way I play and just feeling comfortable with it and not letting myself be bullied into thinking that I have to do stuff a certain way. Right. But I can bring what it is that I have to the table, even if it's not that great. Here I am at the table with my plate. I'm doing it anyway. I don't think I'm any kind of a torchbearer. I really don't. I think I'm another member of the gang of people who are doing exactly what I'm doing and bringing the folk process forward a little bit. It's a pretty big group. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel lucky to be part of the group. That's a really wonderful, outstanding answer, because I think I almost picture it. If you were able to picture it, it's almost like you reach back, pull the next guy forward. It's just this team of, it's a constant sharing and evolving thing. I mean, even now, with all the different styles of music, everything's kind of melding in all these different new combinations. It's really fascinating. I think it is too. Talking about atmosphere, I want to talk about your newest record, which is out on Red House Records, Stump Jumper. Yeah. Real quick, this is another personal curiosity. Who does your artwork? Because it's awesome. Thank you. Well, it's been something that I really, really enjoy. When you get to the point in the record that it feels like you could release the music, I really like, finding art that fits kind of in with the music in some way or another.
Yeah.
A lot of local artists I've been lucky enough to work with.
Yeah.
In different kind of mediums. This last one, the art on Stump Jumper, the photograph is a photographer from North Carolina, and she's amazing. Her
Okay.
pictures are incredible. The design on the side
Yeah.
is a sign painter from Minneapolis.
Whoa.
Yeah. He does, like, if you go to restaurants where you see these kind of permanent looking chalkboards,
Yeah.
he does that kind of stuff.
Whoa.
And so he knew Eric Peltonini from Red House, and Eric asked me to do like what you see on the side of the
Yeah.
record. So that's where that came
It's so
from.
cool. I mean, across all of your albums, I was checking out some of the covers today, and I was just like, whoa, some of this, all of the art. I mean, including the photography, but particularly some of the kind of line-oriented drawings are just really stellar.
There's some great I've just been really lucky, and I'm a kind of a child of the late 70s. I grew up with albums, and they had album art, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And it was big, and I still think in that format, when
sure.
I'm thinking about records. Even before I could release records, I was thinking this would be, this is what I would like to see on an album cover.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's been the way it's been all along. The newest thing is coming out in April, and the cover is a painting that a neighbor of mine back in Duluth, Shauna Gilmore, did, and I don't normally like my image on covers of things because I'm not super happy with that, but she painted a picture of my face as a tree stump. And at the time I had a pretty good beard going, and my beard is like the roots of the tree stump going into the ground, and it's like animals standing around.
Yeah.
That's too cool not to have somewhere.
That's awesome. So when you went in to record Stump Jumper, what's that recording process like? I mean, to me, just in the way that you're speaking right now and talking about the atmosphere at that time, it feels like it's kind of, you go in, you sit down, and you play, and that's what it is. Is that the process for you?
Yeah, I mean, the work that I want to do beforehand is to make sure that I'm comfortable in the space.
Yeah.
Because I feel like anxiety and discomfort will come out of the recording. It'll be there for people to hear as part of the atmosphere, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want it to be comfortable. I want it to warm sounding. I'm not a particularly wealthy individual, so I want it to be something I can afford.
For sure.
So I've always stayed away from studios, but I've got a lot of friends who've got nice gear. So Stump Jumper was recorded in a barn in Hillsboro.
Awesome.
Really good gear, like ribbon mics and stuff. And I mean, in my head, the thing about music is, music exists while you're playing it.
Right.
Recordings are shadows of the music that was played.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really important thing for me. This isn't for everybody, but for me to get a good representation of that day.
Yeah.
In every way, and then I can be proud of the end result.
Right, right.
So yeah, I find a nice spot, and we go in and hang out and play some songs, and it's all my recordings have been done live to tape. And just play and see what happens. And Stump Jumper was almost all first takes and second takes. Whoa. Just because it felt so good. It was a beautiful day. We had the door open, and we're playing, and everybody was like playing just exactly what they was playing, and it all sounded perfect.
Yeah.
And, there's no point in going over it again because you wouldn't do that at a show.
Right.
So I thought we got exactly what the song seemed to need to do. It did, and we did it, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So Stump Jumper took 14 hours to record.
Holy cow.
Including mixing. That's not mastering, but mixing. We did everything in 14 hours.
Oh, that is unreal.
It was fun. I had a great time.
Yeah.
I had no stress about that project at all.
That's fantastic. That's interesting. I've never heard somebody say, I feel like if I have anxiety, it's going to come through. But, in hindsight, now that you say that, I'm thinking like, oh, there's been situations that I've been in where I'm like, this can't sound good. It might be technically okay, but there's that thing, that kind of intangible thing that you're like, I don't know if this was it.
Right. Maybe it comes back to that atmosphere idea that that I want to be fully relaxed and committed to the moment. And even performances, I can tell when I'm nervous or upset about something.
Yeah.
And I know that people can too. And you get those situations where people come up to you after the show and say, "Are you okay? Because that wasn't quite.
Yeah.
You played the notes, but you know.
Right, right.
So I know that that's a true thing.
Wow, crazy. Well, speaking of playing, I would love, if you were feeling up for it, I would love for you to play a couple tunes for us of your selection, new, old, what have you. You're welcome to play what you will.
Okay. Well, here, why don't I play a couple of the new songs that are on the EP that's going to come out.
all of my dreams. Remember me.
Make sure to check out Charlie's stuff. You can check it out on his website, charlieparr.com. I strongly endorse all the albums. I've been listening to him for quite a while now, and to be able to play with Charlie just now is a real treat. So thanks again, and
thank you.
We'll see you around.
Sounds
Thanks
great.
a lot.
Thanks, Tony.
I had a blast interviewing Charlie Parr, and I hope you enjoyed this interview. Here on Tony's Acoustic Challenge, we do these interviews all the time, and I don't want you to miss the next one. So, to make sure that you don't miss the next one, please subscribe to my YouTube channel right now.